What is up everyone, welcome back to another weekly video, a slightly different one for you this week as I am playing my Game Week 31 wildcard. So we'll do the usual bits, but I'll go into a bit more detail with the fixtures left this season and who I'll have in my Game Week 31 wildcard. So let's get straight into the video. So let's start off, as we always do, by having a quick look back at my previous game week. So I made one transfer and I sold Lookman, who only returned 1 point in game week 30 after having to be subbed early in the game due to an injury. I sold him for Bruno Fernandes, who only returned 5 points, but it was still a net positive of 4 points, and the other players that I considered buying this game week in Havertz and Marcus Alonso both didn't score as many points as Fernandes, so I'm pleased with the transfer decision that I did decide to make. Looking at how that affected my team overall, we start off with double Aston Villa defence. Now, a late clean sheet wipeout for both of them was pretty hard to take, seeing as that I have double with Konsa and Martinez, but Martinez did get 4 points with a bonus and save points, whereas Konsa did only return 2. Elsewhere in the defence, another late clean sheet wipeout with Dean, who has been a continued disappointment. He feels like he's so close to the points every single week, but just can't quite get there. Next up, we add triple leads. Now, Dallas and Bamford were both fairly disappointing. A clean sheet wipeout for Dallas, and Bamford putting in one of his worst performances of the season and in recent game weeks, but Rafinha coming in with the goods with a 6 pointer. Now, the ownership of these players is very high, but I did hope for a little bit more than the 2 points from Dallas and Bamford against Sheffield United this game week. Now we add Fernandes, new transfer. He scored well, 5 points, happy enough with that. And actually, given his ownership being about 100%, it didn't really affect my rank whether he returned or not. Next into the midfield, we add probably the biggest disappointment of my game weeks, which was Son and Aubameyang. Now, Aubameyang did have a difficult fixture against Liverpool. He wasn't really involved. Arsenal didn't look very good, so 2 points from him. And Son, I thought he was ready. I thought he was going to be fit coming back to play, but just 1 point from him as he came off the bench. Now, if he'd have started, maybe Tottenham would have got some more points in that game after a 1-1 draw at Newcastle, but yeah, not many points from him and a pretty disappointing return. Now, Ollie Watkins was my vice captain in game week 30, returned 7 points with a goal very late on. Now, happy enough with him. He probably will be leaving my team now, but pleased with what Watkins has given me. He's been pretty frustrating to own most of these game weeks recently, but happy to see a goal to finish that run. And finally, it is Captain Harry Kane, the highlight of my game week, as I'm sure he was for many of you. 26 points for Kane, doubled from 13, 2 goals, very much a very good return for him in game week 30. So yeah, that really boosted my score up this week. It did mean that I left on my bench Areola, Cancelo, Dunk and Gundogan. Now, I made the decision to bench both of my Man City assets, but they both did not feature anyway, so they would have gone onto my bench if I had have started them. This gave me an overall point score of 58 with no hits. That was fairly reasonable. It moved my overall score up to 1,973 and gave me a game week rank of 1.5 million. Now, this was just enough to give me a very small red arrow, moving my rank down from about 21k to 21.5. Now, this is a very marginal red arrow and it's not something to really be disheartened about. I've been focusing on very few game weeks in mind. For example, that game week 29, the doubles that were before, and now looking to play my wildcard. Hopefully we're going to turn the tide and boost up my rank for the final 8 game weeks of the season. So starting to look at my game week 31 transfers and my wildcards, we start off by having a look at some of the best and worst fixture swings. Some teams that I think have really nice fixtures and some that I don't, that I won't be looking at on my wildcard. The teams to avoid here, we've got Fulham, Aston Villa, Newcastle, Brighton, West Brom and Crystal Palace. I've used this a few times before. The key one to pull out here is Aston Villa. I currently have 3 Aston Villa players, but given their upcoming fixtures, including Liverpool in game week 31, I will be looking to sell at least 2, if not 3 of my Aston Villa players. Teams with some mixed fixtures: Sheffield United, Leeds, Manchester City, Manchester United, Tottenham, Southampton, Everton, Chelsea and Burnley. I will be looking to include quite a lot of these, including those Tottenham players given their double game week, Manchester United and Chelsea as well being the main ones that I will focus on. And then the teams that I think have some of the best fixture swings: Leicester, Arsenal, Wolves, West Ham, Liverpool. Now, this is based purely on their fixture runs, and it doesn't necessarily mean I think you should go and buy 3 Arsenal players. As we know, given their form, this may not be the best idea, but given their fixtures that they have left, this is how I would arrange the teams. So building on that, a few of the key defences to start at that I'm looking to target. The first one is Chelsea. So yes, they did concede 5 to West Brom in game week 30, but I still think given their fixtures and the form they've shown under Tuchel that there will be one of the best defences throughout the rest of the season. There is some rotation there, but there is also some good budget options that we can definitely think about owning. Next up is Liverpool. Now they have one of the nicest, if not the nicest run of fixtures left this season. Their defensive form has improved. They kept a clean sheet against Arsenal. They seem to be rotating less. They seem to be building that solidarity, and putting Fabinho back into midfield has definitely boosted their output. And the final one is Leicester. So these are 3 defences that I definitely think that I want to include on my wildcard. Leicester have a really nice run of fixtures over the sort of next 5 game weeks or so. After that, I may look to sell, but some of their defensive assets, given their fixtures, is something I'm really looking forward to owning. Next, moving on to some of the key attacks that I'm looking at focusing on. So Tottenham is the first one we have here. We know they have a double game week. We know that Kane is really on form. He'll probably be my triple captain that I'm yet to play in game week 32. Now, I don't necessarily think I want more than Kane or Son in the attack. I'll probably own both of them and maybe look to sell after game week 32. But at the moment, I will definitely be owning at least Kane, and 90% sure I'll own Son as well. Next up is Liverpool. So again, I like their defence, but I also like their attack. They seem to be changing their form around a little bit. They have a really nice run of fixtures, and they'll need some league form if they want to go far in the Champions League as well, as one will lead into the other. So Liverpool, the second club I'm looking for in the attack. Again, the third team, another team that I like their fixtures of, hence why they're in the defensive ranking as well as the offensive ranking, is Leicester City. Now, they have some really nice options both in Maddison, Iheanacho and Vardy. It's just about picking which of these that I want to own. And finally is West Ham. Now, with Antonio potentially injured, although it's sounding like he should be back for game week 31, if not the game week 32 fixture against Newcastle, Lingard and Antonio are probably the 2 that I like the most, although some of their defensive assets as well do have attacking threat, which is worth considering. So building on that, a few players that I will not own. So some of these highly owned players that a lot of you guys will have in at the moment, some of them that I'm not really considering owning. The first one is Patrick Bamford, who's owned by almost 50% of the game, and this is even higher when you look at active teams. Now, he's been one of the most popular assets, but they have a really tough run of fixtures coming up. I may look to get him back when their fixture swings in about 4 or 5 game weeks time, but for now, I don't think Patrick Bamford has a place in my team. The next one is Aston Villa goalkeeper Martinez, 5.4 million and 40% owned. I think this is a real place that I could potentially look to gain some ground while everyone still has Martinez in their team. If I can look for a goalkeeper with potentially better fixtures and a potential better return for me than Martinez, I think it's a place that I can really get some green arrows. Another highly owned player that I don't think I'll own is Calvert-Lewin. Now, there is potential for a double game week for Everton, but I will look to potentially buy him when and if that does come around. For now, I don't like their fixtures enough, and I think there's other forward options that I would prefer to own. And the final one is Kevin De Bruyne. Now, 11.9 million, I do think he's a good option, but we've seen already in game week 30 the rotation that there's going to be in that Manchester City team now that they're focusing on the Champions League. So 11.9 million and 20% owned, I think there's better places for me to spend my money on some players who are probably less rotation prone. So for me, these are the top 4 highly owned assets that I don't plan on owning on my wildcard. So moving on to the ones that I will likely own, the first one of course is Harry Kane. I won't dwell on this too much, 11.6 million and almost 50% owned on the whole game, pretty much 100% owned in active teams. He will be my game week 32 captain, if not triple captain, so there's not much that needs to be deliberated. I think it's a pretty obvious pick on a wild card. The next one may be slightly less obvious, given how much I've spoken about Liverpool and particularly their defence. Trent at 7.3 and only 13% owned will likely be in my wildcard team. I think he's trying to prove a point to get back into the England squad for the Euros. He seems to be getting up that right side and crossing into the box much better than he was early in the season. Third on my list is Jesse Lingard. Now, Jesse Lingard, I definitely think I'll want in my team. Now, I may not have him in my team for game week 31 due to them playing Leicester, but in game week 32, they do have Newcastle away. So I may not start with him exactly on my wildcard, but I will definitely be wanting to bring him in given the form that him and his West Ham teammates are in. The final player that I really think I'm likely to own is Diogo Jota at 6.8 million and about 9.5% owned at time of recording, although this is climbing rapidly. Given his goal goal involvement. He's so clinical, he's so important to that Liverpool attack at the moment, and given their upcoming fixtures, I think it's a really good pick, and I think anyone on Wildcard should definitely have Jota. I know there may be a little bit of rotation with the Champions League, but they definitely still have to focus on the league in case they don't win it, and Jota has been such an important part of that Liverpool attack. Now, a few more players that I will likely own, or sort of selections that I plan on making. The first one is a Chelsea defender. Now, I don't know quite which one it will be, or whether it will be a Chelsea defender or a goalkeeper, but given their upcoming fixtures and their form that is shown, I definitely want one of these in my team. The next one is a Leicester defender. Again, I haven't quite decided whether it will be a goalkeeper, if it's a defender, whether it will be a centre-back, a wing-back, Pereira or Castagna, exactly which one it will be, which is why I haven't gone with a specific player, but given their upcoming fixtures and some of the defensive form they've shown this season, a Leicester defender is very likely to be in my team. And building on this, a Leicester defender also is a Leicester attacker. Now, I spoke a little bit about James Maddison, Iheanacho and Jamie Vardy, all options that I'm considering. I haven't quite decided exactly who I'm going to go with, but I know I will have at least one of these in my wildcard team. And the final one is Fernandes or Salah. Now, I would love to own both of these, but for now, given that I want Son and Kane for the double game week, I don't think there's quite space in my team for owning both Fernandes and Salah. So I will have to make a decision based on which one of the ones I want for the upcoming few game weeks before I probably will get the other one in as well at the expense of Son, given Son's potentially poor form in recent weeks. But for the double game week, I'm not going into that not owning Son. So with all of those thoughts in mind, let's have a look at my Game Week 31 current wildcard draft. So in goal, I've gone with Mendy of Chelsea and Forster. Now, Forster goes in as a 4.0, currently playing goalkeeper. I don't think I'll want to use him very much, but the off chance that Mendy has a difficult fixture and Forster has a good fixture, then I may start the Southampton goalkeeper instead. There's also a Southampton double game week still to come where I may favour starting Forster for 2 fixtures over Mendy for 1. Mendy, Chelsea, as I've said, have shown recent good defensive form, even if they conceded 5 goals to West Brom. At 5.2 million, I think it's that assured starts that I like with Mendy, whereas some of the defenders, the likes of Alonso, Azpilicueta, Rudiger, I don't know they're going to start every week, hence why I've gone for that solidity of starts with Mendy in goal. Into the defence, the first one we have is Konsa. Now, I have spoken that Aston Villa have some potentially tricky fixtures left this season. However, Konsa at 4.7 million does still have a double game week, and there are the odd, very nice fixtures. Given the ownership of some of those Aston Villa defenders, and particularly Martinez in goal, I think it's still a good idea for me to own one of them. I can put him on my bench for most of the weeks, but bring him in for those strong fixtures. The next one is Cresswell. Now, without Declan Rice, I may consider not owning Cresswell, but we know what the attacking threat he can have, especially from set pieces. I have a lot of money to spend, so 5.9 million isn't too much of a worry for me, so Cresswell is in there, given their good fixtures that they do have on the horizon. Next up, we add Castagna of Leicester. So I spoke a lot about the Leicester defensive fixtures, particularly, and their defensive form. He does have a lot of attacking threat, and he seems to play a lot more than maybe some of the centre-backs where I can't decide who's going to play every week. And Ricardo Pereira at right-back seems to be a bit of an injury risk. So Castagna, even at a hefty price sum of 5.7 million, given some of the attacking threat he has shown, he is into my team. The other defender we have here is Rob Holding at 4.2 million. Now, he wasn't starting for Arsenal, but with David Luiz potentially injured for the rest of the season, I think at 4.2, Holding will be the first choice right centre-back for Arsenal. They have some good fixtures, including Sheffield United in Game Week 31. He probably won't play that much for me given Arsenal's defensive form, but it's better than having no one playing there. So Holding is the 4th defender in my team. The final one is Trent at 7.3, so we spoke a lot about him, so I won't dwell on him that much, but I do really like their fixtures. I like the attacking threat, and to be honest, Neco Williams, his backup, is not playing well. I don't think he's much of a threat, so I expect Trent to play pretty much every game left this season. Into the midfield, so we first add Jota, again a player I've spoken a lot about at 6.8 million. I really like him at that price. He seems to be starting most games, so he is definitely in my team. Bruno Fernandes at 11.5 million. Now, I have decided currently to go with him over Salah. I've got Trent and Jota, so I don't necessarily think I want Salah, given some of the recent results for Liverpool leave that much to be desired. So I have gone with Fernandes. He does have some nice fixtures, and he starts every game for United, even when there's Europa League matches. Next up, we have Rafinha and Gundogan, who are still in my team. So Rafinha at the moment has a tricky run of fixtures over the next 3. He'll probably sit on my bench for those games while I play my other assets, but coming to those fixtures at the end of the season, I will still want Rafinha in my team there. So instead of having to book a transfer in to potentially get him back in, I'm just going with him on my wildcard. I also mentioned Gundogan. Now, this could have been Lingard, but not owning any Manchester City players for Leeds at home is a bit of a worry for me. So I plan on going with Gundogan in my wildcard team for game week 31 and then selling him straight away for Lingard, who then has Newcastle away in game week 32, whereas Gundogan plays against Aston Villa and there's always going to be that rotation there with him. Into the forward line, so we have Vardy and Iheanacho. So I've currently gone with a forward double up of both the Leicester forwards. After the West Ham fixture, they probably have 4 of the best fixtures you could possibly ask for. Now, Vardy hasn't returned that many goals recently and Iheanacho is a rotation risk, but at the moment there's no other forward options that I'd like, and I like the duo as a bit of a differential. So at the moment, both Vardy and Iheanacho are in my team. And the final 2, as we spoke about, are Harry Kane and Heung-min Son. Now, Kane will be in my team for the rest of the season, there's no doubt about that, unless he picks up an injury. Whereas Son, I definitely want to own him for the double game week in game week 32, but after that, I may look to free up some funds to sell him to afford Mo Salah for their good run of fixtures and not need Son, given that they do have a blank in game week 33. So that at the moment is my current game week 31 wildcard draft. So with that wildcard draft in mind, let's have a look at how my team will line up for game week 31 and who I plan on captaining and vice captaining as a result. So in goal, we start with Mendy, who has Crystal Palace away. I'm always going to start him even when Forster has another good fixture, which is against West Brom this week. I definitely think that Chelsea defence is better than the Southampton one, so Mendy gets the start. In defence, so we do have Holding, so I don't plan on playing him very much, but Sheffield United away, I can't turn down starting the Arsenal defender again in that fixture. Castagna is a potentially difficult fixture away at West Ham, but given that some of the options on my bench also don't have great fixtures, I have opted to start him. I do think Leicester will continue to fight, it'll be a really good game, and he does have potentially more attacking threat than some of the defenders on my bench. Next up, we add doubled Liverpool. So Trent and Jota, who I brought in, both with Aston Villa at home. This is a good fixture for them. Potentially as well, if Grealish isn't back for Aston Villa, we know that they're not as strong without him. So I do like having Jota and Trent in my team for that fixture. Into midfield, so we have Fernandes. Now, it is a potentially difficult fixture. I could have gone with Salah, and Fernandes does have Tottenham away, whereas Salah would have Aston Villa at home. But going forward, I think Fernandes will be the better pick. And we know that Tottenham, they conceded twice to Newcastle, so I don't think they're defensively that strong. Gundogan, my next one. Now, it is a one-week punt. He does have Leeds at home. I think that's a really good fixture. Now, I may not include him depending on how many minutes he plays in the Champions League and any thoughts we get from Pep, but at the moment, he is in my midfield. Next up, we add double Tottenham attack, who are both starting to me. Now, they do have Manchester United at home, who have shown some good defensive form, although a lack of clean sheets potentially in recent weeks. I definitely think there's opportunities for Son and Kane to get something in these fixtures. And finally, up front, we have the duo that is Vardy and Iheanacho, who will continue to start for me every single week if I do have them on my wildcard. It is a potentially difficult fixture given how good West Ham have been defensively, although they have just conceded 3 to Arsenal and 2 to Wolves, so I do expect there to be chances for Vardy and Iheanacho to get returns in this fixture. In terms of my bench, we have Forster, Cresswell, Rafinha and Konsa, who all do make the selection on my Game Week 31 wildcard, but don't quite get into my team. Cresswell could in fact start over Castagna, but I think having Vardy and Iheanacho, it makes more sense for me to go with Castagna over Cresswell. Rafinha and Konsa are obvious benchings given their fixtures, and Forster, I spoke about why I'm not starting him over Mendy. In terms of the vice captaincy and the captaincy this week is currently planning on being on Trent. Now, I don't see necessarily a standout captaincy option. If I think Gundogan will start, he will probably get the armband, but for now it's on Trent. I do think there's a good chance of a clean sheet, and we know what he can do with attacking threat and bonus potential. So for now, that's how I'm lining up for Game Week 31 with my wildcard active. If you have any questions about your teams or your wildcards going into Game Week 31, drop them in the comments down below or message me over on Twitter, and I will make sure to answer them ahead of the Game Week 31 deadline. But that's all we've got time for. I hope you have enjoyed. Good luck in Game Week 31, everyone, and I will see you all next time.